the for everybody to show up. Great. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Julie O'Brien, the Executive Director at LookUp. Thank you for joining us on Zoom and on Whova and in live stream from our website or on your phone using the app. We're glad that you're together with us. I know it's hard to tell how many people are out there, but it's been great. I'm so honored to introduce a family that I'm in awe of and so proud to know and have known for several years now. And have been a big fan of their journey and wanted to share their story with you all. It's so important for us to hear and to, it's like, as my opinion, it's just such a great example of support and love. And so I think without saying too much more, Ben, Addie, and Sarah are going to tell us a little bit about their lives, their journey, and the challenges of how they have used social media and the in the digital world to benefit their families' transitions, and how they've braced for what could be and what we all know can be a quite toxic environment as well. So and more. So there's lots there. I'm going to turn my screen off and turn it all over to Sarah, Ben, and Addie. Thank you for being with us, and we'll enjoy. This is being recorded, so the session will be available afterwards as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Thanks for having us. We're happy to be here. We're happy to talk about ourselves, our journey, and of course, how we have both leveraged social media and the digital world and the online community, as well as the things we've learned in what we may be need to be aware of, and the benefits, positives, both positive and negative. What we'd like to do is, of course, introduce ourselves, a little bit about our background, and definitely acknowledge the special and unique position that we're in. My name is Ben. This is Addie, and that's Sarah. We are a family with 2 children. Addie is one of them. Both children, one child identifies as non-binary, and Addie uses she, her pronouns. I use he, him pronouns, and Sarah uses
she, her pronouns.
There you go.
Thank you.
Sarah and I both were raised in relatively progressive environments. And I think the first thing we should acknowledge is that our children had a relatively progressive and accepting environment for them to explore who they are. And as a result, they are probably in a position a little more fortunate than some others in the world. But like I said, Sarah and I, in our progressive upbringings, we've always been a family that I think wanted to provide this type of environment, if not for our own children, then other children. We're very supportive of both not only Addie and our other child, but their wider community of friends who are also kind of experiencing these things. And so in doing so, we feel that our family should be a safe harbor for the members of the family and then the members of the community that our family brings in. We have not only had our own progressive and kind of socially acceptable upbringings, both Sarah and I, but we, from the very beginning, encouraged our children to exist in one, not only with here at home, but when we looked at other things outside of home, school, what have you, one of the things we always measured is this a progressive or accepting and safe community for our child to explore whomever they want to be. This is, of course, before either of our children came out to us in their own gender expression.
Addie, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Addie. I use she, her pronouns. And I don't know, like I'm 14 years old. I'm a freshman. This is freshman means this first year of high school. So I don't know. It's the school that I went to from pre-K to 8th grade was also very accepting. Like since, pre-K, we learned about like LGBTQ plus like people and like what it is. And it was a very, very accepting school. And it was also a very small school. Like there were only 12 people in the 8th grade. So that was a good thing because like, oh, there weren't like some people that were like misgendering you sometimes or stuff like that. But it's also not the best thing because you can't like really know, like being with the same 12 people for like 8 years means that like it's still hard to like change like your entire view on this person. So like, oh, one day they're like, hey, I'm using different pronouns. It's hard to like for other people and also me to like change not what I think, but like just their pronouns because I've been with them for so long. I'm sort of rambling.
No, maybe it's like when you had decided to change your gender identity or express it the way you had felt, not only were you in a safe environment, however, as a result of being in a small academic environment, it may not have been very different because these people had known you for years before you had expressed this. And so for them, it was, and this is not to like play it down, it was almost as if you just put on a different shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things I do want to make sure we talk about is, of course, the aspect of the digital world and how it may have helped you in your expression beyond those 12 people. Because I mean, you've described to us that you have had a unique journey in not only first accepting who you are to yourself, then expressing that to people in real life, and then expressing that outside. Before we talk about that, though, I'm hoping you could tell us a little bit about why you think you're so confident in this.
Yeah, I think I'm just like so confident because in like the digital era, it's so easy to just say something and then just like let it be out there with like so little. I mean, there's still repercussions, but like it's very, very like toned down because, if you say something to someone's face, you don't know what they're going to expect.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say online, there's not a lot that people can really do. So that makes it a lot easier. There's also like a lot less anxiety of like saying it to someone. You can just like post something in your story and just let it sit there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that brings us to hi, I'm Sarah. I'm Addie's mom, Ben's wife. I have come from a background. I'm a sexuality educator. I teach 5th and 8th grade sex education, and so for as a parent with using that lens, I come to the understanding of Addie in a world filled with we teach about the dangers of being online and how to be safe, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But when Addie came out to our family, she actually came out to us through a text, and I understood when she came out to us through text was that there was a barrier there. So being online, you can, what Addie was saying before, it's a little bit safer. You can sort of express who you are. Also understanding that there are dangers out there where people may not accept you, family members may not accept you. your friends may not accept you, but at least you can put it out there, and it's sort of, you know, well, we've taught Addie that anything that you put out online is sort of permanent. And so once she made that expression on Instagram, just by changing her pronouns, she made that decision on her own digitally, and knowing that it's a permanent expression of who she is. And so that sort of brings me to the process of how our family tackled coming out.
Tackle is a very interesting word.
Tackled, yeah, and I use that word because it is sort of I mean, for us at least, it was a process, because we had so many different levels of how to tell people our story. And this is another process of telling people our story. And so we sat down as a family after Addie told us that she was using she, her pronouns. We sat down as a family and said, well, how do we want to express this to the world? When do we want to tell our family members? How do we want to tell our family members? I'm active on social media, and I have a lot of photographs of my kids, and I used different pronouns, and I had to decide when to start using new pronouns. And so we as a family talked a lot about how we would navigate that. Navigate maybe is better, so that not only is our family safe, but Addie is safe, and in the sense, safety in the sense that, you know, as a parent, you're protecting your kids from any bullying or you know, people who may not agree and want to harm you in some kind of way. So really, and then family members, of course, too, who don't want to, who can't accept what's happening, and also helping them navigate their, you know, helping them sort of understand our decisions and who we are.
It's like as a family, we have these channels of communication to our wider community and wider family members. We have family all over the country. Some people we know have family all over the world. And, you know, it's really crazy to think about how in the last 10 years, we've gone from having a handful of channels by which we would communicate something like this to, you know, a compounding amount of channels, from multiple social media streams to multiple digital signaling streams, from email to text to what have you. To hear about Atticus having, Addie having this ability, and I apologize, I slip up on Addie's preferred name still, because I've known Addie for years. And
it's almost like you're my dad.
I know. Addie using text allowed her to have kind of a safe barrier. In previous lives or previous generations, it may have been like a note or something like that. So it's interesting to see that these digital communication tools were used internally, and then we decided as a group how we would leverage those communication tools to let our wider community and family members know. Sarah drafted a family email that we sent out to a huge extended family, not just siblings and parents and grandparents and what have you, but cousins and uncles and aunts and so forth. That coincided with Sarah working with Addie and making the decision of now ensuring that we're supporting Addie's preferred pronouns in any social media aspect. So when we post a picture of our family, it's a picture of, you know, our daughter and not the previous pronouns. But I want to go back just really quick and talk about Addie's text message. Prior to the text message, Addie, being an active social media consumer, when I think about it, you hear these stories of generations where people who either did not know or didn't accept it within themselves, or were using forms of media to communicate with people that are close to them in real life. You hear about people like leaving magazines about certain subject matter, or clothing magazines, or what have you, right? Excuse me. Addie actually started sharing posts about transgender people with us, kind of signaling their interest before they had told us that they saw themselves differently. And it was a very safe way for Addie to kind of test the waters with us to see what our reaction might be. And I want to acknowledge that people have that ability to signal to the wider world their interests and who they are just by who they follow on social media platforms and who they may interact with, comment, or like. In doing so, you are not only creating an image of yourself to the social media purveyor, say Instagram or Facebook, but you're also signaling to other people who might be out there. It's like putting a message in a bottle almost and throwing it out there, knowing that somebody else may be doing the same thing, and your messages may clink together in this ocean of the internet and reverberate back to each other.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Like, not only is it like, I mean, what you said before, like about past generations, like, oh, maybe like handing someone a note. If you text someone, it like shows up that they read it, so you don't have to like have anxiety about like, oh, did they see it, or like what did they think? Oh no, which is, I don't know, just a little thing, but it's still helpful, I guess.
Could you think you could tell us a little bit about your experience about being open about who you are online, and maybe your experience of what you may have learned around safety or security, or maybe we've described some of the positive aspects of using these tools, but it doesn't mean that it's not without the downside of human behavior wrapped around it.
So like the positives, as I said, like it's a lot easier. You can just like do it and then just let it be there. But then like there are people on the internet who can like, not only can you like say these things and like feel like, oh, no one is going to come yell at me or something. Other people are saying, oh, I can say these things and have people not yell at me, so I can like comment on this person's post or just say something, which is probably not the best thing, but like what's going through their mind is like, oh, I can just say this and nothing bad is going to happen, which is true for both sides. Like I said, like there's no like, I don't know, repercussions for both sides, which can be very good but also very bad.
But can you talk a little bit about the
There's a question.
Oh
yeah, no, I just want to make sure that we answer this question. It's what we're talking about. As an avid gamer, how has Addie handled her transition? How has the gaming community reacted?
Yeah, so usually when I'm playing a game, like I don't usually open up as, being transgender. I just pick a girl character, I guess. And usually that's like, I mean, some games can be like very sexist, like, oh, you're a girl, you must be so much worse, blah blah blah. Or there's people that are like, oh, you're a girl, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not like other men. So
that's interesting.
That doesn't happen to me, but I've seen posts like where that's happening. But what's great about it is that if you're playing a video game, then you can just like ignore that and then just beat them.
So do you think that comments like that affect you? How do you deal with comments like that? Or comments in general, like somebody posts something that might be hurtful.
Usually I take that, like, I'll just use the game expression. Like I was saying, like if someone says, oh, you're so bad, like because XYZ, I usually take that not as like, oh, they're probably right. I take it as in, oh, you must be challenging me, so I'm going to overcome this challenge and prove you wrong.
Okay.
And like with social media posts, I usually like, I also sometimes do this with like, if I'm playing a game, like I usually just ignore it, like, because if you give them attention, then they're trying to get your attention. They're trying to make you upset. So if you show, like, even if you are upset, if you show that you're not upset, they're just going to get more and more like, oh, what about this? So
Yeah.
It's interesting how
yeah,
these outlets allow you to curate what you say, what you do.
Mhm.
To your point, you can write back, or you could just play the game. You kind of make a conscious decision, but in doing so, I mean, how is that different than being honest about yourself in like an Instagram post?
yeah. I mean, usually if it's like a very broad, like, oh, all trans people are X that, I usually just ignore it, but this hasn't happened to me. But like, if there's something calling me out directly, which is like not going to happen anytime soon, because I'm not close to anyone that's like that. I don't know. I usually
can we
talk.
stop right there?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're not only curating, you're being open and honest online,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of holding back what you're going to say, you curate who you interact with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I know my sibling did this, where they like posted a thing on their story, and it's like, if you don't, like, do you think that there are like other pronouns, but besides he, him, and she, her, like people who said no, my sibling would like talk to them and then usually just unfollow them, or like have them unfollow, because they didn't want that toxic person in their life.
Okay.
So
I want to make sure we get to these questions.
Sure.
So we have another question that says, what advice? I can't read it.
What advice would you give for kids who have less accepting parents, but a more accepting friend group / social media following?
yeah, so usually, I mean, I'm not the best person to like answer. I mean, I am the person here to answer these questions.
Well, you are, but think of it this way. Do you have friends, people you know in your position, that may not have as a welcoming home, but have used social media or the internet or technology to find that welcoming space?
So like if you don't have parents that are very accepting, or like your town is not very accepting, then you can like, that's what's great about like social media, is that you can find people that are like you and connect with them. And like, I don't know, if they, maybe you don't even know it, but they like live in the same town as you and they're going through the same thing as you, then you can connect like in person. And being in person is always more personal and it feels better than talking to someone online.
As a parent also, and someone who, because of my profession as a sex educator, there are also resources for teens and young people who don't have parents who are accepting, and that can remain anonymous. And so PFLAG has, and I think I linked it on the panel. PFLAG has a lot of resources for folks, and also locally, if you like, a lot of places will have a local affiliation. Here we have something called Metro Out West. It's for kids, LGBTQ kids, and then and their family members can go to, but kids, teens, middle school teens and high school teens can log on a Zoom call, and it can be pretty as private as you can make it. And this is where teens are, when they're savvy with media, and that it helps to be able to sort of keep those things private.
Yeah.
We have a couple more questions.
I just want to add, like, one of the benefits about the internet, of course, is the ability to disseminate information over large geographic sites with with little to no friction. But that also includes the ability to connect. And if you think about families who may be living in less populated areas, and they may have a child living in a less populated area, say a town of like 100 people, suddenly the internet allows them to speak with people living in a more populated area, San Francisco or New York, where before, and I have friends who had to do this, they stayed quiet about who they were until they were old enough to go to those areas. And that's a fraught with danger journey and lifestyle that the ubiquitous form of communication that we have amongst ourselves right now can really head that off, because some of those people actually like living in those areas. But because we're social beings, they need that connection. And so, yeah, PFLAG, great group. Fantastic.
So we have another a question. My question is, should Facebook stop underage social media for good? If COVID-19 pandemic ends and your child chooses to stay at home and not go out with you to malls or anywhere, just to be on a computer, and refuses to go out to your good friends' homes and extended family members, if they are okay, what would you do? So there's two parts.
There's a couple of questions.
Let's answer the Facebook question. I don't know if a lot of young people are really using Facebook. Like, I don't really know. Young people are using Facebook.
Usually, sorry.
But it's mostly Instagram or Snapchat.
Yeah. I know, like, none of my friends are usually on Facebook. I know they're like, most people say the people on Facebook are like 30 to like 40, in between that age to like 70, 60.
Older.
Yeah. So like, I know there aren't a lot of kids on Facebook, but there are a lot of people on like Instagram and especially Twitter. So like,
do you think that should end for people under a certain age?
I mean, I think like there should be some restrictions, like, you know, if this person is like under the age of 13, if you're not like, if you haven't like sent a friend request and had this person accepted, then you shouldn't be able to like DM them or like message them.
DM would be direct message.
Yeah. So like, if you're not like a friend with this person, like if they haven't accepted you as like, if they haven't let you message them, you shouldn't be able to message them. And like, I don't know.
So rather than constricting the use of social media, rather than preventing younger people from using social media companies should take more responsibility about how younger people are interacted with in social media, how they are advertised to, how they are contacted. Social media has the ability through machine learning and artificial intelligence, something I know a little bit about, to actually detect and prevent predatory behavior. It's about like allowing this to be a safe space means defending it as a safe space, not preventing people from using the space.
Agreed. Yeah, because the space, as we've outlined today, has become a really safe community for LGBTQ teens and young adults. And if you take that away, especially to younger kids in middle school to high school, then they're left with no one. And so back to the question before, you may have friends, but you may feel isolated and alone if you can't tell your family. Having that online support group that is a safe space, I think is extremely beneficial to these kids.
But there's another part to this question that we left out, which is, what if your child finds acceptance and and it displays a lot of interest in using technological devices, spends a lot of their time online, that may not want to go with you and your family and friend's house.
Right.
Go
ahead.
No,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I wanted to say one thing, which is we struggle with, this is actually something we struggle with, and we think it's more developmental than Addie's situation or her sibling situation, that, you know, these devices, video games, what have you, they encourage dopamine and short distance reward systems, where, you know, we will put we put guidelines around these things. We set time limits. We say, let's get outside. Let's go for a walk. We have a dog. That helps out quite a bit.
Can I interject?
I just want to say one more thing. The other side of that is, I'm so sorry. You, at some point, if you're accepting of your child declaring who they are, then you are accepting of your child more and more often as an individual and a peer.
Right.
And if they don't want to go to your friend or family's house,
Maybe ask why.
maybe ask why.
That person might not feel safe. The other thing is, and with Zoom, with the pandemic, Addie was discovering who she was through really coming to terms with her gender identity through being home, and she really did not want to go on Zoom because she had to look at her face, and the reflection she saw, and I'm sorry I'm speaking for you, but she didn't want to look at her face because it didn't reflect what she felt, how she felt. And so luckily with the technology, there are things where you can turn off the picture, you don't have to see yourself, but it isn't perfect. You know, the other thing, weeding out friends and people who don't feel safe on social media. Do you want to talk about how you, like, if you have someone in your social media feed that feels unsafe, what's your process? How do you manage all of that?
What do you mean by feels unsafe? Like
To you.
To you, so
me.
like maybe bullying you or
Usually I like unfriend them or like block them.
But what's the real world consequence? So like
usually if I don't think I've had an experience where like I've, you know, unfollowed someone and they're like, they've come up to me and be like, hey, why'd you unfollow me or something. I think I usually just like try to distance myself from them, like in real life, or, you know, just interact with them less. So basically just
So that describes a situation where somebody in the real world is also connected with you digitally, and you've decided to curate them out of your digital communications and community, but you still have to deal with them in the real world. What about somebody who may pose a danger to you online? I mean, that's a very strong phrase, but there's gradients of that. There's people where you're like, look, that person's just not cool, to that person's not safe. I don't like what they're saying. How do you deal with that?
You have to tell people. You have to tell your like people that you trust. Usually, I mean, like telling your friends is like, I don't know, like, sure, you can tell them, but like there's not a lot that they can do besides just like help you distance from them. But if they're like actively coming after you, then you have to like tell someone that is in a higher position of power that you trust. And this goes back to like, oh, what if you don't have parents that can like that you trust? Then I would say try to look for someone who again is like in a position of power, who will be able to like do something. But just like mostly, as long as like you tell someone, like even if they can't do anything, as long as you just get it off, like you need to tell someone about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, there are questions by the way.
Oh, there are questions. Go ahead.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit
Oh, we did that.
more about how your sibling used social media to, quote, weed out their friends who were less supportive of your transition? What motivated them to do that, and has it helped create a more positive environment?
You know about this? Like,
Well, this is about your sibling,
yeah.
weeding out their friends
Yeah.
who might not be supportive of you.
So what they did was, they just like posted a thing in their story, and they had a poll, like, I forget what the questions were, but like a handful of the people like that were following them and that they were following were like, no, I believe that,
Whatever.
blah, blah, blah. And basically, like, my sibling would say, thank you for your input. I don't think we should be friends anymore, or something along the lines of that.
Now they're a much more,
Their sibling is a senior in high school.
Yeah.
but also a much more kind of I don't want to say confrontational, but a person who's not afraid to challenge things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in some instances, they brought up to us, like, look at this person's response. I don't think I should be in connection with them anymore, but I want to say something. In some instances, we would encourage their sibling to just not say anything to that person. You can take the action of just saying, you know what? This is not a member of my extended digital community that I want to be connected with.
Yeah.
The risk there is that diverse voices lead to an enriched community. And Addie's sibling accepts that and would use that as a point of saying, okay, well, let me talk to this person, but had to be careful about, sorry, our door blew open. Would have to be careful about, am I confronting this person or am I having a discourse with this person? And in doing so would be very would walk the line of, is this somebody I cut out to create only an echo chamber that is either supportive or just reinforcing of notions, or is this an opportunity for them to learn? And Addie's sibling was very open, and that was Addie's sibling path. However, Addie's sibling has been just fantastic. Just a fantastic advocate for Addie, not only in the digital world, but in the real world with us.
Yeah. So we have another question.
Sarah raised a great point about image. Actually, I'm glad this came up. And not wanting to use Zoom because Addie didn't want to look at her face. How does a transgender girl handle our unrealistic beauty standards? Is the experience different, more intense, etc., for a trans girl versus someone who's a girl from birth?
Yeah. So do you want to say the first bit and then I can do the second part?
Sure. So how does a transgender girl handle unrealistic beauty standards? So that's an extremely good question. I come at this as a parent with the understanding already that there are unrealistic beauty standards. And so at home, the one of the questions was, when Addie came out, I said, well, okay, what do you want to change about your gender expression? So there's the difference between
how others would see you.
Right. So there's gender identity, which is who you feel you are, and then gender expression, how you like to express yourself. And that is a really complicated thing, especially for a teenager who is already dealing with the media coming at you with images about how you should look and what you should look like. Mm-hmm. And so we talked a lot about how she would want to express her identity. And really, Addie hasn't made a lot of changes to her gender expression. And that's her process. How media, I can't speak to how media affects her, but my sense is that no matter who you are, male identified, female identified, it's all intense. Go ahead.
So like, yeah, like the unrealistic beauty standards of like, not only like, you know, non-trans women, but trans women for like, you know, there's this like this dysphoria of like, oh, you know, every now and then I think, oh, I'll never actually look like a quote unquote real woman, which is like not true, because I can, but it's just a very not like, it's a long process. And also like it's hard because like, you know, you don't know what other people are going to think if you go outside, you know, wearing a dress, and people are going to be like, hey, why are you wearing a dress? And like the further you go on in life, it gets easier and it gets better, because like I don't know, like you can, the older you are, the more like experience you will have with like trying things out and seeing what you feel comfortable with and what you feel like you look good in. And
but does the media and the pressure of that,
the pressure of, oh, there's both like, oh, you shouldn't do anything, why are you doing this, that, and then there's the other pressure of like, oh, you like
need to look a certain
this
way.
isn't a bad thing, but it's like, oh, you should do this, you should, here, I'll like give you all of my dresses and stuff. It's like I don't like the not supportive, but I also like the supporting is good, but it's also like over supporting, if that makes any sense. Like it's not giving me time to like, I don't know, try things out and experiment and see what I like, because then I'm just going to have all these clothes that I'm never going to wear that other people
think you should wear,
think I should wear, or like don't have and would like to wear.
It's almost like, okay, here's the image of womanhood. You identify as a woman. Let's start giving you all the tools that make you like steer you towards that.
Yeah. So and maybe it is a more intense situation. I
don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think dysphoria and self-image, in comparing oneself to curated images that are presented in order to sell things, it affects everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. I mean, I don't know a person my age who identifies as male that probably doesn't have some small like, oh, is my hairline receding?
Right.
Is you know, man, I should have gigantic biceps, because that is part of the identity I need to. And it's not something that is just affecting women, trans women, non-trans women, trans men. I think it's something that we have to think about as human beings.
Yeah.
That we our desire to be wanted and grow. I mean, that has been manipulated by media in order to sell things, because if we don't sell and buy things, I mean, it's a big vicious cycle. It's also intimately connected.
I know we're running out of time.
But I do want to talk about one last thing, which is new topic. Addie's growing up.
We have 2 minutes.
That's fine. I just want to say, Addie's growing up in a much more tolerant era than Sarah and I saw some of our friends who are now our age, or people that are our parents' age, had to grow up in.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see the speed of that tolerance, how things are becoming more tolerant even more quickly. But at the same time, there is an intolerant voice that is becoming more intolerant.
Right.
We just have to be careful about that.
There's so much more we can talk about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people want to ask questions, we're offline. I don't know how
Yeah,
we
by
can
all
do
means.
that, but we're happy to
Well,
answer.
you know, what's a good way too is to put it into the chat in Whova. So if people still have questions, put it into this session's Whova questions, and Ben, Addie, and Sarah can answer them there, or even on the Whova platform, there's the ability to create a meetup where you just
Great.
go and meet, and it becomes a little mini like Google Meets kind of thing.
Okay.
A nice
Great.
plug. Anyway, and we'll but anyway, I'm sorry to cut you off. We do need to let the next group of panelists into the room. But thank you everybody for coming. I know again, this was live streamed, recorded live, so this will be shared with many to come. And Addie, thank you for your courage. You know, sorry, I get so emotional when I say nice things about people I know. So kind of fun. Anyway, thank you for your courage, because so many other kids in your situation don't have the courage yet. But when they hear kids like you, they get more courage, and then they can live a happier life. And that's so important. So thank you for being you, and for your mom and dad, and for our friend E, who also is a huge advocate. So everyone, thanks. Stick around. There's lots more. We're going till 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. tonight. So lots of great. That's Eastern time. Sorry, I'm in the Boston area. That's Eastern time. And then we have a whole day again tomorrow. So thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sarah, Ben, Addie, and we'll see you around.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.